Hello and welcome to the ORH Podcast. I'm your host Finley and I'm once again joined by Adam Driscoll as we review yet another defeat for Luton Town. How are you doing, Adam?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. A good weekend, other than Luton, which is probably a sentence I've said far too often over the last sort of 2 years or so. More to the point, how are you? Because I understand you were up quite early, and mate, you were one of several that made the journey to Lincoln.
Yeah, when my train was at 8:26 it was meant to be going from, and then I got a notification at 6:30 in the morning to say it had been cancelled and I was going to have to get the 7:26 train to Lincoln. So it was a very, very early start, not just for myself, because there was a few other people on that train that said the same thing, that their train had been cancelled and they were having to get the really early train. And with it being an early kickoff, there was either that or drive, and I couldn't be bothered. I'd already bought a train ticket. So pretty poor start to that. But aside from the football on the pitch, it was a really good sort of away day. There was a lot of Luton fans in the pub before, and then did a quick power walk to the stadium to avoid the rain. But from the moment it kicked off, it was all pretty
Yeah,
poor, and we'll go into detail on that. But just before we do that, don't forget to check us out on oakroadhatter.com, where you can find all of our content, whether that's written content like the player ratings piece that went up today at the time of recording, or our merch, which we've got a great range of merch there with some exciting things planned for what else is to come. And you can get the latest podcast episodes on there as well. But let's get into it. Yeah, it's a 3-1 defeat at Lincoln City, and I think 3-1 is actually quite generous to what we saw from Luton.
yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I didn't obviously I wasn't there like yourself, and I haven't seen loads of the game, but from what I've heard from people that have gone and seeing highlights and stuff, it does sound like we got off lightly, and that's with conceding 3 goals. It's I mean it's a bit of a shambolic day all round. I think it's I mentioned after the game, like on Twitter, that I'd been one of those that was trying to kind of be positive and move into this season with positivity, kind of putting last season behind us. But it's very hard to do that when you get that sort of performance that you're meant to try and get behind. And we'll go on to that. Obviously, we'll go on to what's going to happen in the near future, etc., and what we need to do. But yeah, it certainly sounds like we got off a little bit lightly, and but having said that, we still got outplayed and deserved to lose the game. So yeah, really bad day at the office.
We did, when we saw the team come out, I guess we weren't actually that surprised because we sort of expected it. Mengi was in the side, obviously making his first start of the season after having surgery, having surgery last season and then missing the start of this season. Um, he was in at centre back with Longvik pushed to right wing back, which is something we have seen once before. We've seen once or twice at wing back, and it's not something that I guess people have loved. But I think we were optimistic when the team came out. It was, we've got an experienced side, we've got good players. We actually do have good footballers in there sometimes. Um, Mengi is one of those when he's obviously fit and available and ready to go, and he was in the side. Once we got to the game, however, it was. So we mentioned how early the start was. They scored on 12 minutes, um, and you could see straight away when that goal went in, just the way it came about. So we'll talk through the goal. They played the ball across the midfield with no one even anywhere near it. There's just a huge gap in the centre of midfield. Um, I think Saville was tracking a runner who was moving across, and obviously that split where either Nelson or Clark should have been covering. Freddie Draper is then able to sort of play the ball into Ben House's feet as he's making a run into the box, and Longvik and Mengi just split like the Red Sea. They both just, I guess, from what I assumed, they weren't communicating, and one of them hadn't picked him up. But Ben House is just allowed to go in on goal 1-on-1 and slot the ball under Keeley.
Yeah, yeah, it's basic. just schoolboy defending, and I'll probably use the same words for when we get to the second goal and we get to the third goal. But it's just what more can you really say? It's just so basic that we haven't had to make them work for any of their goals, um, and it's just I don't know. I mean, Mengi, albeit a young player, is experienced. He's obviously played at higher levels than where we are right now, and Lomvik also, it's not his first season in professional football. So why isn't there communication and understanding of what each partnership, each role is meant to be doing? Regardless of changes in personnel in certain positions, we should know what the right wing back is responsible for in defending. Like, we should know what the right centre half is responsible for, which attacker or midfielder they pick up. It's basic stuff that should be discussed and should be understood. You know, during the training week and when they have these team meetings that they do. Um, so really concerning that we've conceded three really basic goals. Last week we conceded 3 goals again that were our mistakes and poor defensively, and it's really not a good look, is it, when you've done 6 goals in a week, lost both games, and as you've just said, like experienced players like Mengi and Anderson, what is going on? It's just there's no understanding or relationship in that defence. It doesn't seem right now, and that's massively disappointing because at the start of the season we looked, actually that was the one area you were thinking we're slowly but surely building up our attacking threat, but at least we have the defensive foundations. Well, someone's taken a sledgehammer to them over the last week because, as I say, 6 goals, and all of a sudden we now look like we can't keep a clean sheet and we're lacking threat up front. So yeah, really bad. So that was goal number one, wasn't it?
That was goal number one, and then sort of for the rest of the first half, we moved the ball around between the defence, back to the midfield, back to the defence, lost the ball, moved the ball to the midfield, back to the defence, lost the ball. We just kept it. We just, for some reason, even though we had Yates and Wells up front together, obviously both quite diminutive in stature, we seemed to be trying to play these sort of long balls to them up top for them to try and control. I was surprised Nordas had been dropped in the first place because he is that physical presence, especially when you're up against Sonny Bradley and Adam Jackson, who are both 6'3", 6'4" plus, and it was so easy for them to just win those aerial duels, just knock the ball back into midfield for their players to hold on to. And we have experienced players in that side, as you've mentioned. The front two we had, they probably should have at some point said to our other players, "Can we stop playing these long balls? We're not getting anywhere with it." But it just seemed to go on and on and on. And it was like increasing in frustration in the away end through that first half. We did have a chance shortly before half time, which was probably the only chance of the half we had, actually, when Wells fired one sort of wide, and that was a good effort on goal, I guess, or not on goal, but a good effort. But then after that, nothing else really went in our favour, and we were lucky not to be 2 down. Bradley got it, sort of got onto a loose ball in the box and fired it just over, and he very nearly did score during the game. But you could see the Lincoln barely had to come out of first gear in that first half to just. They didn't really want possession. They were happy to let us have it and just not really do anything with it. We talk about experience. Their back line is 33, 31, 34, and 32, and have all played at sort of either a long time in League One or at a higher level before that. And it was very, very easy for them in that first half.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to what are we showing like right now? Where's where's our identity? Where are our patterns of play? How are we building up our possession in a game? Like, what does it end with? And you've mentioned there, like, the fact that we had sideways passes, backwards passes. I mean, the match stats say we had 57% possession. We had 2 shots on target. So again, like I've always been a fan of, I'd rather have 30% possession but counter attack, have numerous shots on target and be a threat. Um, but we're not that. We're not that, and this is what's really, I guess, starting to frustrate me now, is that I don't see I don't see what we're trying to do and where we're going. And yeah, it is a bit of a change of tune for me because I've been a Bloomfield backer, but I'm starting to see a manager that doesn't know his best 11, doesn't know what formation he wants to play, feels like this is being forced. Um, and we're not getting better with every passing week of training. We're not seeing patterns or anything like that. So that's what's super concerning to me. And yeah, you're right. Bradley should have scored 2-0 at half time, would have been game over then. Obviously, as we know, and we'll come on to, like, that didn't pan out for their advantage right then. And we managed to get ourselves back in the game, but obviously we know it didn't last too much longer as well.
Yeah, we did get ourselves back into the game. Obviously, Jordan Clark scored around 75 minutes. It was really probably not a deserved goal. Even though it says we had 13 shots during the game, I can't really remember any that really tested Wickens in goal. That one was maybe the only one that was sort of slightly more challenging, and it was actually a really well taken goal. Ali played a good pass from that free kick into Clark, who sort of slotted it under or past the keeper. It was quite a tame sort of effort in terms of pace, but it was well taken. You can see, and he's got that technique in his locker anyway. And I think Clark was the only player on the day that really looked like he was sort of ready to play at the level and step up and really drag everyone along with him. But there was a lot of dead weight for him to drag, so there's only so much he can do on his own. Morris came on as well. Shaden Morris came on about 60 minutes, I think. And to be fair, he looked quite positive. He gave us sort of natural width on that right hand side, and he's very, very quick and was sort of trying to beat his man out wide and get crosses in. Obviously, we didn't really have that threat in the box for those to pounce on those crosses. Whilst Lincoln had Freddie Draper, who's a big lad, even though he's only 21. They've obviously got James Collins, who we know how good he is in the air, and they had Rob Street as well. So they had some real threats from their crosses into the box, and you could just see nothing was really clicking for Luton. We didn't seem to have a style we wanted to play. We weren't keeping hold of the ball well. Ali was trying to make runs out wide, but it just didn't seem to be getting anywhere with it. And then on 85 minutes, their substitute striker on loan from Coventry, a Bikru, scores his first goal of the season, which is, again, just terrible, terrible defending. Makozo's on the pitch at this point, and he sort of ducks to try and header a sort of low ball, just headers it straight into the striker, and he's allowed to go one-on-one again, and then Keeley's not really quick enough to come out to the player who's sort of caught on his heels.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like, as I said earlier, it's just basics. I mean, why Makosso is. I mean, he must see the guy close to him. I'm not even sure when he intended that. What was the intention with the header? Where was it intended to go? Yeah, I mean, it's just really, really poor, isn't it? Obviously, from then you head it straight into their guy. It bounces the other side of you as a defender, and then the guy's clean through, and it's pot luck as to whether he's going to miss or score. I feel for Keeley. You know, I know he made a mistake last weekend, and obviously it led to a corner, which led to a goal and whatever. But I just I just feel like we're really not helping him as a young keeper, one of the best in the league. This should be a season for him where he's getting 20 odd clean sheets. But our defenders really aren't helping him achieve that, are they? So yeah, it was really really poor from Makosso. I mean, on him, you know, I think Bloomfield said in the post match interview that he'd been dropped to the bench because he was late for a team meeting, and my first thought was, why is he even in the squad? No, if there's punishment for a lack of discipline, then make it a punishment. Because he still comes on the pitch, doesn't he? Like, he still gets on the pitch because we have to take Mengi off. So Mengi starts for that reason. But you've got to be all or nothing with it. You've either got to say, he's a young lad. It's his first offence in terms of like team meeting or whatever. You slap on the wrists and you play him, or you make it a clear and obvious thing that will not be tolerated, and you drop him from the whole match day squad. I don't see where you benefit with like any respect or any authority in just saying, well, you're going to sit on the bench for 60 minutes and then we'll bring you on. I don't understand that. I think that's absolutely mad. And I think Bloomfield has not helped himself with that, the handling of that, and the decision they've come to there, really.
Yeah, it was strange that he was left out actually in the first place. I thought Mengi might come in for someone like Naismith, or even Mads, but yeah, he came in from Makosso, and obviously we found out why after the game in that sort of post-match interview. He's a young player, I guess, and but he's a professional footballer, so he should be turning up to meetings on time. Everyone else who gets paid to go to work every day turns up to work on time and is expected to be there on time. They don't have the luxury of being dropped from a work conference because they were, or being able to come onto a work conference off the bench because they were late to the meeting before. But it's obviously football's a sort of different world to other careers, obviously, as we know. Um, yeah, you mentioned Bloomfield there. He's been sticking with this back three, whether that's by choice or just by the circumstances he's found himself in with the players available. But he did go to a back four in the second half. He took Naismith off and he took Nelson on and brought on um, Bramall and Makosso to sort of set up a more conventional back four with Longvik at right back and obviously Bramall at left back. Naismith was really visibly quite annoyed when he got subbed off. He almost tried to pull the shirt off his own back as he was subbed off. Apparently, someone who was watching on TV mentioned to me. But I think something that was really, really telling when we moved to that back four, was quite a lot. Well, a fair few in the Luton end was singing four at the back, like probably for about 30 seconds or so. Actually singing four at the back, ironically, just taking the piss out of ourselves and just being so glued to this back three, which we saw under Edwards, and at least Edwards had a system he wanted to play with it. But we just haven't seen that under Bloomfield. And we did look briefly better with that back four, but there were so many changes in the defence at that point that those other two goals they scored, and we'll talk through the third one as well, because that one is probably the worst of the three. There's just no organisation in that defence whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't see how there's not. I mean, you mentioned Naismith there. I think if he's getting frustrated about being subbed off, that is on him, because he's been way off the pace since he came back in the summer. So you've got to take a look at yourself to a certain extent. I understand what he brings off the pitch, leadership, etc., experience, but like, you'd be hard pushed to ask a Luton fan how he's been this season, and for them to say he's been anything other than bang average at best. So yeah, that's. I mean, whether that reaction is accurate or not, we'll, I suppose, have to ask a few other people. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just a mess, isn't it? And obviously, the third goal is as much of a mess as the other two, and probably from Lincoln's perspective, you would say it was deserved. I mean, would many? I mean, you probably better off answering this, but had we come away losing by one goal, would you have said that was harsh on Lincoln? Do you think the scoreline, a 2-goal gap, was reflective of their dominance on the day?
Oh, definitely. I think, yeah, if they did one by one goal, it would not have told the story of the game whatsoever. They were miles and miles better. They were so well organised in defence, and then going forward, they had rhythm, they had structure, and the way they wanted to attack. We mentioned the amount of strikers we've got at the club. Well, if you look at that sort of the wide players they had and the front two. They were playing four strikers as well, but they worked so hard off the ball, and I guess it's what you expect from League One teams almost, to be hard working, to be physical. They were very physical on the day, and they just completely dominated us in every area of the pitch. And yeah, let's talk about that third goal, because it was Ben House who scored it again, so it was his second of the game. He hadn't actually scored yet this season. I've just found out. But he's running down sort of the wing with Longvik just behind him, and Longvik almost looks to try and bring him down and completely misses him, and he's just allowed to run through, and then runs straight at our defence, who don't get tight enough to him early enough. Makosa doesn't get anywhere near him, and then he just lets. To be fair, the shot he took was an awkward one for Keeley, because it was bouncing, I guess, but I think Keeley maybe could have done better. Perhaps that's harsh. It was an odd sort of technique he took on it. It really sort of fizzed and bounced its way into the goal, but both Anderson and Makosa just get nowhere near it. They put in pretty tepid blocks. And yeah, at that point, when the third goal went in, that Luton end emptied out very, very quickly. And then there was 10 minutes added time, which we had to sit through. It was just bizarre. Just end the game at that point.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you weren't sort of on a train halfway home long before then, to be honest. So yeah, fair play to people that did stick around, and everyone that made the journey, because it was a pretty poor day all round. I mean, yeah, again, third goal, poor. You look at our defence on paper and you think this is tall, solid, and what should be the foundation um, of points and performances, but we do seem to have still a very weak setup when we have players running at us, or a quick through ball. When you get an opposition player that is creative and can sort of see those passes. I think they're a defence that could probably comfortably deal with long balls, with the height and the physicality. But the third goal is an example. Down that left hand side, you've got someone running at you. Lomvite makes a decision to lunge in, which is the wrong call, and obviously from then we can't deal with it beyond that either. So yeah, another poor goal to concede. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, I think I said something like, if we get to 10 games, or 10 games and we've conceded 6, I think that's a fairly good return. And the fact now we've already conceded 9 in 8. It's, yeah, as I said earlier on, it's the foundations have crumbled on what I thought was going to be building from the back. We've we've crumbled at the back, and we've not particularly added much attacking threat either. So it's looking a little bit messy right now, and there's a lot of questions already as to how long do you give the current manager. At what point do you make a decision on what you want to do this season? I mean, I personally, right now, I think I said at the start of the season I would judge Bloomfield after 12 games. I think by all accounts we've got 3 more games. Obviously, I think we're 3 games away from the international break. So that's Doncaster at home, the rearranged Blackpool game away, and then Stevenage away, and then we have an international break. So that takes us to 11. So I would say that is a very good time to look at where we are, understand, do we think with the squad and the formation, like, is this season going to be something that we can salvage? And if it's not, like, have the bollocks to make the decision, because we know what happened last season. We left it far too late, and there was too much work to be done. So I'm definitely not someone that was going to call for the manager's head unnecessarily, but I do feel like that next international break, it is a very good time, a quarter of the way through the season, to really have a look at it and go, what are we going to do? Are we going to stick or twist? So yeah, I mean, yeah, gone a little bit off track, but that's the feeling I'm kind of sitting with right now, having lost half of the games we've played.
Yeah, well, you mentioned there sort of the faith in Bloomfield, or fans not having faith in Bloomfield anymore. I think full time, you could really, really tell that he'd lost the support. It reminded me of Sheffield United away last season, which was quite early in the season, where we lined up with just players under Edwards. This was up with players just in bizarre positions. I think we had Reece Burke playing right mid at that point in that game, and then at full time we lost 2-0. Didn't really show anything in the game, and at full time there was real anger in the away end. People getting quite aggressive towards the players verbally. Nothing unpleasant, really. Just pissed off that they don't seem to care as much as the paying fans care. The one player you can't say that about for certain, and you've never been able to say that about, is Jordan Clark. He came over to the away end to give his shirt to a child and had a chat with a couple of fans, but he was the only player that actually came within any sort of reasonable distance. Um,
Mm.
and the only players actually that had their names sung ironically by the Luton fans were Sonny Bradley and James Collins, who both gave a little clap of appreciation to the away. And I think that just says everything about what the current opinion is of what we're doing when the two opposition players are getting their names sung and getting applauded off the pitch. When Collins got subbed, he got applauded off the pitch by the Luton fans, obviously, and Bradley had his name sung a few times throughout the game.
Yeah.
His fun little song that we used to sing, and I don't know. I
But
don't feel that with any of the current players really.
no, exactly. But these are two guys that would run through brick walls for us, uh, you know, and formed the spine of a team that was, sure, maybe not the most talented individuals at times, but they 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 dug us out of a hole in the championship when Nathan came back. Like, they would give everything and leave everything on the pitch. And I just don't know how many players right now you can say the same thing for, maybe other than Clark. Now, I'm not going to start bashing the players because I rated the window last week as 9 out of 10, and I still think that in that squad there is more than enough to get a top two finish. But are we playing the right formation to suit the majority? Probably not. And when Bloomfield comes out and says the players are lacking confidence, why? Because we've just, prior to the Plymouth game, we've gone away to Burton, put in a really good performance and won. We've then scored 4 in the Virtue Trophy at home to Barnet. We've then had a break and solid training, and obviously the window closes. We've signed attacking players. Like, why then all of a sudden are we lacking confidence? I can't get my head around that. And again, those sorts of comments, uh, he's almost starting to dig his own grave with comments like that. Because if you can't get your players playing confidently and motivate them, then you're in more trouble than you think. So yeah, I really quite. I listened to the 8 minutes, I think it was, of the post match presser, and it was done by Three Counties as well. So I think it was Jeff Doyle doing it rather than the club. Again, nothing against the club, but you get more honesty and more open and honest questions when it's Three Counties. And I didn't particularly like the way he answered a few of them. It was it was a bit like a politician. I'm gonna do everything but actually answer the question. And we've seen it time and time again with managers that can be the start of a demise. So yeah, it was frustrating post match presser as well as it was the 90 minutes, really.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned it already, but I think people are really getting quite fed up with Bloomfield now. Well, we used to have, obviously, we went from Nathan Jones with his high energy press conferences to then Rob Edwards, who you could tell really cared about the club a lot, even if it was to his own demise at times, maybe. And we now got Bloomfield, who just seems indifferent in what he's talking about, and it feels like there's no sort of emotion. And I think that's maybe not that surprising for me, given that he was a one club man at Wickham. He played his entire career there and then went in and became their manager. Did really well there, and he's got that connection with the club and had the connection with the fans as well. And then I'm still surprised that he moved, to be honest. I really am. I think financially it must have been a much, much better deal because there's no real connection there at all. I don't think anyone in the crowd feels any connection with Bloomfield. And yeah, his comments don't really help. You mentioned politician. He's sort of a politician when he's talking to the media, and he's a PE teacher on the sideline who's stood there with his mug of coffee in the cold, waiting for the kids to hurry up and run around so he can go back inside to the staff room.
Yeah, I mean, it's just again like up until this weekend, I've been a fan and a backer, and I want to see him succeed. But I've become severely concerned over the last couple of weekends, particularly yesterday, and with comments in press conferences. It's uninspiring. Like, I'm not saying he's got to be Nathan Jones and start banging his chest and praying to God knows who, but just show something that the fans can get behind. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think he's particularly honest when he's asked questions. Ari, Doughty, the whole preseason thing when Doughty's injured, but then all of a sudden, like 12 hours later, he's doing a medical at Millwall. Just be honest about it. And I do understand that probably a certain amount of what he can say is led by Emperor Sweet, but have some personality and show us that. Just show us something else at times. That's what I think, because I think when you look at the results and the performances, and then you look at what we have to listen to off the pitch, it's all becoming very, very tiresome. It's becoming like Groundhog Day every weekend last season, and I don't know there's too much more of that the majority of us can take before we need to see change again. We've changed the whole squad over the summer. I think we've got a good squad. I stick by that. There's only one other thing you're going to change, and it's just when we do it, whether it's now, 3 weeks, 3 months, or end of the season if we haven't achieved what we want to.
Yeah, I think you sort of summed it up nicely there. And obviously, our next game is at home to Doncaster on Saturday. And if we don't get a result in that, I think also a performance on the pitch as well. If we don't see a positive performance, whether or not we could win 1-0 and play badly, and I think fans would be disappointed by it. But if we don't get a result, I think it could be turn really, really bitter on Saturday, which is not what we want to see, because that's when things really start to go wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's, again, like people like me have tried to set aside last season, but it doesn't take a lot for those memories, and obviously very bad memories, to come back. So, God, if we don't win on Saturday, home to Doncaster, who have started the season pretty well, it's gonna keep getting more and more toxic, as it did, for a long time last season. I'm still not convinced the board are going to do anything before that break, because that gives us 3 games. It gives you're basically a quarter of the way through the season. So I'd be absolutely amazed if they do anything before then, even if we were to go and lose against Doncaster, lose against like all 3 of them, Blackpool and Stevenage. But you're going to have the fans getting more and more disengaged with it. So yeah, obviously it's crucial that we win our home games and beat Doncaster on Saturday.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that game and give a preview in the week. So there'll be another episode where we look into that in a bit more detail in the week. But for everyone listening, we'd love to know your thoughts if you were at the game against Lincoln. What did you think about what happened on the pitch? What was said by Bloomfield? And we also want to know if you want to see a change in the dugout as well. So let us know in the comments, or get in touch with us on social media and let us know what you think the problem is and what needs to change, if anything. And we might discuss some of the best comments and the best opinions that raised some good conversation in our midweek pod where we preview that game. But from myself and from Adam, thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon.